Okay.
Roll call
Okay.
vote.
Mayor Joseph,
Oh, okay. Okay.
Councilman Galvin,
Here.
Councilwoman Keys, Councilman Biedeme,
Yeah.
Vice Mayor Desume.
Here.
Mayor, we have a quorum.
Thank you very much. We'll proceed with Pledge of Allegiance with Major Page, Robert Page.
Good evening. If you can please stand, place your hand over your heart and face the flag. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America
and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. If we can still, do we have invocation today? Yes, we have an invocation with Rabbi Lane. They put the wrong agenda on top.
We ask God to invoke his blessing upon our mayor, our council, and all the people that are here, that everyone should be granted peace and only good things. Right now, we're reading in the Bible, in the book of Leviticus, about leprosy. And it says that you receive leprosy from what's called Lashon Hara in Hebrew, which means speaking gossip about other people. It used to be that if you spoke ill of people, you would develop leprosy, which is great. You really wouldn't speak ill of people because you'd break out with this horrible disease, and then you'd be sent to a leper colony. Today, it's not the same. But the same results of Lashon Hara, of speaking ill, is the same, which means that people are hurt. Three people: the talebearer, the person who's listening, and the person being spoken about. And so what I ask today is that we be mindful and very careful about gossip. Gossip hurts. It hurts three people. Again, the person speaking the gossip, the person listening. By the way, the person listening is worse than the person telling. Because if you say, I don't want to hear it, it shuts the person up immediately. And the person being spoken of. So we learn from the Bible right now, while we're reading the book of Leviticus, that we should not be talebearers. So we ask God to invoke his blessing, that everyone should learn to work on themselves, that we should do the best we can to make ourselves as good as we possibly can be, and not worry about telling stories about other people. Just worry about making ourselves better and working with other people. I ask God to invoke his blessing on everyone here, that we should have only good things, good health, strength, and that the city should always be united. And we say, Amen. Amen.
Amen. Thank you very much, Rabbi. Everyone may be seated. At this time, we'll ask Mr. Manager if you have any additions, deletions, or amendments to the agenda.
Just one change, Mr. Mayor. I'd like to move tab C off of the consent agenda and have it heard out immediately after.
That's the item pertaining to the proposed bond issue.
That is correct, sir.
Okay. That's it?
That is it, sir.
Okay, now we'll, all the members of the council, we're gonna go down for some special presentations. The first presentation is a certificate of recognition presented to Hope, Incorporated in honor of National Fair Housing Month. This month we commemorate the celebration of the anniversary of passing of the Fair Housing Act. This is also the time where we recommit ourselves to the goal of eliminating housing discrimination in this country and creating equal opportunity in every community. So today we recognize the Housing Opportunity Project for Excellence, which is HOPE. And we, at this time, are inviting the manager of CPND, Tanya Wilson-Sejur, to please come forward, along with the the Education and Outreach Coordinator of HOPE, which is Mr. Rob Collins. That would be you. And you want to present it, Ms. Sejur?
Always full of surprises.
Yeah, this is not Miami.
All right, we're honored to present this certificate of recognition to Hope. They have been a very brave advocate for affordable housing and for housing rights within the city for many years. And we are honored right now just to recognize them for the partnership they've forged with the city over the years and to really encourage them to continue to be the advocate that they've been in North Miami for the underserved and those without the voice. Thank you.
The second recognition goes to the library. At this time, I'm going to ask Ms. Gonzalez, Ms. Lucia Gonzalez, to please come forward. This week, we celebrate National Library Week, April 10th through the 16th. And this year's theme, I believe, according to the American Library Association, is
Libraries transform. Libraries transform communities. Libraries transform lives. Libraries are transforming in our communities. Libraries are centers where the community gather, where they come to learn, where they come to access, where they come to be empowered, and where they meet and gather. We are providers of services for the entire community, the young and the old. And we welcome everyone to our beautiful new renovated library with all kinds of resources for everyone in our community.
You said the young and the old.
The young and the old.
What about the restless?
And the restless too. We
the
get
restless
plenty of those. And I would like to invite our friends of the library who are here to come up to receive the certificate. And staff, and library staff also.
Ms. Timothy? UPIO, this is library, so this is for you to present.
Well, in honor of the North Miami Library, in honor of National Library Week, in recognition of National Library Week, the City of North Miami acknowledged the North Miami Public Library, the librarians, the library workers, and the treasures institutions that fuel continuous efforts to better our community, campuses, and schools. Libraries transform.
In the middle. In the same wave of Library Week, your dear mayor standing before you, I do a reading for the kids at the library every second or every third? Every second Wednesday of the month at 4:30, we read books for the middle school, no, well, actually kindergarten and middle school kids. So if you feel like listening to the mayor reading, you can come too, tomorrow at the library. The third recognition is to celebrate or to commemorate kids and families with autism. This month, we also recognize the National Autism Awareness Month. It's a disease that is very prevalent in our country. Out of 68 kids, have autism in this country, and about 3.5 million kids are living with the disease, and families are actually coping with it. they do the best they can with social support and governmental support. So it is a time where if we can talk to our congressmen and women and senators to really advocate for more federal funding to help with this disease, I would encourage you to do so. And at this time, I would invite Mr. David Barnett, who is the chairman of the board of the Victory Center, Dr. Tara Lafui, Director of Education, and Judith Gatti, Director of Administration, to come and receive this certificate. Okay. The certificate reads as follows: to the Victory Center, in honor of Autism Awareness Month, in recognition of Autism Awareness Month, the City of North Miami acknowledges the Victory Center for their continuous efforts to help provide education and services to children with autism and related disabilities. Your dedication to serving our community is held at highest regard. Thank you very much. Thank you. But you won't be in it. But you won't be in this one. Smith Joseph. First name Smith. Joseph. Thank you very much.
We were close by.
Yes, you are.
We love to show you.
That's not a problem.
Yes, okay, I'll send you an email.
Yes.
Thank you very much.
That's it. That's it.
Okay. We will proceed with our next presentation, which is a special one on Arch Creek drainage area study with James Murley, with the Chief Resilient Officer of Miami-Dade County. No?
Just a quick introduction of Mr. Murley as he comes forward. Mr. Murley currently serves as the Chief Resilience Officer for Miami-Dade County. Miami-Dade has definitely put sustainability on the forefront of its agenda. Right now, it's a high priority in terms of implementing policies and goals for the county. And one of the initiatives that Mr. Murley will be going over with us is a pending study of the Arch Creek Basin. There's a partnership that's been forged with ULI, and what he'll be providing for us today is an overview of how the partnership will work, and in terms of the study focus, how it impacts North Miami. Thank you.
Thank you, Tanya. And good evening, Mr. Mayor, members of the City Council, Manager Spring. My pleasure to be here. My name is Jim Murley. I'm the Chief Resilience Officer for Miami-Dade County. It's a relatively new position, and as Tanya said, it reflects the priorities that the County Commission and Mayor Jimenez place on working throughout the county with our cities, our private sector, all of our partners in making Miami-Dade County a safer and more resilient place in the future. Mr. Mayor, we sent forward a memo and a map. I guess the map is going to be, it's on the screen.
Yeah, we have it.
And you have the memo?
Yes.
Also, okay, well then I have extra copies for anyone that has them. Mr. Mayor, recently Mayor Jimenez came up to North Miami to the Margolis Center, I think, and addressed a business luncheon. And when he came back, he got a hold of me and said, you wouldn't believe it, that when I asked for questions, they were all questions about sea level rise. And that struck a message with him, Mr. Mayor, that One, we were on the right track to be focusing on this issue. We really appreciated the fact the business community had also acknowledged it. And two, he was pleased to know, because we had briefed him, that we were in the beginning of preparing a study in a partnership with, we hope, the city of North Miami and others. And that's why I'm here, to give you a briefing of where we are in the very beginning of putting together this study. The Urban Land Institute is an international organization of experts in real estate planning and finance. They are located all over the world. They also have a chapter here in Southeast Florida. They have received funding from the Kresge Foundation in Detroit to do studies in resilience planning in areas around the country. They came to Miami-Dade County and asked us to identify a location where they could bring in a panel of 8 international and national experts, free of charge, members of the council. This is being paid for by the Kresge Foundation with a small contribution from Miami-Dade County. If we were to monetize the services we're getting from these experts and the time from their staff, it would be well over $200,000. So this is a high-quality study team that's coming to understand the special issues that exist for Dade County, but in particular the issues for what we call the Arch Creek Basin. Now, why did we pick a drainage basin rather than a political boundary of one or more of our municipalities or unincorporated areas of Miami-Dade? It's because water does not know any boundaries. It does not know if it's crossing a city line. It doesn't know if it's crossing a county line. It knows how to drain from a high place to a low place. And in South Florida, that's going to be the key for our community's future understanding of how to deal with the consequences of rising water. And why are we worried about rising water? We've been living next to the water. We came to Florida to be near the water. It's because science is telling us that for a lot of reasons, the atmosphere is warming, the ocean is warming, and when water warms, it expands. And the expansion of the ocean is a slow progression of sea level rise. That alone is probably something we could adjust to over decades. But what we know also happens in this beautiful place we live is that we also experience high tides, especially at the lunar high tides in the fall. And we live in an area where hurricanes do occur. We've been lucky for a decade, but that's statistically not going to continue. Sea level rise amplifies, it makes these other events more significant, more damaging. So we got to think about it in a holistic way. We have to think about it in drainage areas. So that's why we've put together the study boundaries using the map that you can see projected. That's the entire Dade County is in a drainage basin one way or another because of the way the canals are draining or the elevation of the land. This particular area also contains many of the features that we wanted and the Urban Land Institute was interested in that have more or less a variety of things that are going on, and it could be impacted by rising water. You obviously have within the incorporated boundaries and in the unincorporated areas, you have what you might call the historic legacy of building canals. The canals that come in from the bay and are attractive residential areas. Those canals could not be built today. You cannot dredge a canal of that nature under the current environmental rules of both of the federal, state, and local government. But they were perfectly legal when they were dredged, and they provide a great amenity to the communities that share them. But they are pathways for water. So we found that this kind of landscape, if you will, exists in many places in the county, but it certainly is shared in this area. There are other low areas that have flooded. These can be one way that we know of these is because there are repeated claims made to the federal flood insurance program. So that's a signal that these areas are prone to flooding. So we've looked at that. The whole area is a large area with 4 of our municipalities and some areas of unincorporated county. We did work with the ULI. They asked us to focus in perhaps on 3 focal areas. We've looked up to the upper northwest in an area of unincorporated. You can see within the boundary, that's one of those areas that has repeated flooding. We're looking down at those canals in the lower south east corner. And then there was a feature that I know you're looking forward to and the whole county's looking forward to, and that is we hope to see in the future a return of passenger service to the rail line. We know that Florida East Coast Railroad is building and expanding the tracks to take the new system they call All Aboard or Brightline. Unfortunately, that won't stop in here, but we think and are planning to have a commuter line like Tri-Rail called Coastal Link come in behind the private investment and provide you and the citizens here a opportunity to be able to move up and down that corridor, which historically was the way we moved in Southeast Florida, in a commuter rail system. So with that as something we knew was in the future, Urban Land Institute said, well, let us look at that. How can we build on all the good work you've done in your comprehensive plan and other things and give you the best ideas we have for how that area can be ready when passenger service, commuter service returns. So those are our focal areas that we intend to look at. This is a full court press type exercise. The team arrives on a Sunday. You'll see the dates on the top of the memo. They start getting briefed on Monday. They do a tour. There'll be a reception, which we hope can be at the Art Museum if we can get all the logistics in place. On Tuesday, they'll be doing extensive interviews with elected officials, members of your staff. We've asked staff to assist us in getting the Margolis Center. We think that's an excellent location to work out of. The panel will then take a couple days where they just kind of do really on their own. They brainstorm what they've learned. These are people that are at the top of their professions, and so they know how to do this work in close quarters. And then on Friday morning of that week, there'll be a public presentation of their initial results in the form of a PowerPoint. A month or 2 later, they'll be back. We'll present with their chair to you a full report in a final form in a document. And after that point, members of the council, the county will certainly be available if you want to pursue additional work in the areas that are identified within your boundaries. We'll be talking to the other cities also and looking at our unincorporated areas. But we don't see the work stopping. We see a jump start being made available to us by these experts. So, Mr. Mayor, members of the council, I'll be glad to answer any questions. We look forward to this week in the end of May and working with you.
Now, the only question I have is that how is the county, is there like a comprehensive plan moving forward by the county where it would engage the different municipalities with certain obligations or tasks or whatever it may be moving forward?
Yes, sir. The county commission several years ago impaneled a sea level rise task force. That citizens group provided some recommendations which County Commissioner Sosa had written into county resolutions, which are then adopted by the full commission. They come over to the mayor's side of the county government, and my office has been coordinating the responses, and those are going to be made available probably this month to the commission and probably a presentation in May. I would say, Mr. Mayor, that that's the framework for a plan. We haven't got all the answers by any means, but we have identified, the county commission identified 5 or 6 issues they wanted us to come back to them on. Commissioner Sosa also, actually this morning, Mr. Mayor, at the one of the committee meetings, a new resolution directing the administration, the mayor, to work closely with the municipalities on these particular plans. She was underlining that focus.
Okay.
Hi, Mr. Murley. Thank you for coming tonight.
Thank you.
You
Councilman.
mentioned Rail Plaza and the Arch Creek. There's a point at about 135th Street where they intersect, where theoretically rising sea levels in Arch Creek could impact the light rail tracks that, or the rail tracks that exist, light rail tracks that might go down. Has the committee given thought to that? I mean, I don't know what the real
Well,
answer would be, but
Yeah. What we're doing, working with your staff, is putting together a briefing book, which will be sent to this panel of 8 people, probably about 3 weeks ahead of their arrival. So they're going to go and do their homework. They're going to send us questions. They're going to do interviews. And we will, out of that interaction and study they'll give us their ideas on how that kind of an issue could be identified.
I'd also be interested somewhere along the line in hearing your opinions. I think it's FIU that compiled it's a great graphic where you can go online. And
Yes, sir.
I think it's wonderful. I hope it's accurate. I'd love to hear some outside opinions as to whether or not
Well,
that's accurate.
there are several available. That's an excellent tool. We're just learning how to graphically display sea level rise.
Right.
And I think we'll get better. We have great technology available to us these days. And I always make a point, though, as I said earlier, to recognize that sea level rise in itself is happening over time, decades. But it is making these storm events, and we're only a month or 2 away from the beginning of hurricane season. So when we do things that protect public infrastructure from future hurricanes, especially that surge wave that comes if we had a major hurricane, we're going to do it in a way that also protects us from sea level rise. That's the approach the county took when we're in the process of upgrading the water and sewer system. The North District plant, which is in the city, I think, just outside of the boundary, is going to have significant upgrades designed to protect it from 75 years of sea level rise projection.
And would you suggest, or would you agree with me in this very slanted question, that anything we can do to restore native plantings and mangroves along our coastline and our neighborhoods that meet the water, that would be a good thing to continue doing?
Absolutely. Not only is it a resilient way of going about it, any kind of vegetation that we plant serves the purpose of absorbing CO2. And one of the few ways we have available to slow down sea level rise, and we need to do it city by city, county by county, but it's a global problem. But those plants absorb carbon dioxide, and that's what is in the atmosphere that's causing the warming. Planting a tree and planting mangroves, or whatever are the right varieties that work in your community is a big plus.
All right.
I was just, you're doing this study, you really don't say, what are you studying? Are you doing physical studies? Are you doing, or is there any other reference material we can look at to see exactly what you'll be studying?
Well, we'll have these briefing books are coming together, and we'll certainly be sharing those with your staff. You'll have them in just a couple weeks. To a certain degree, Madam Councilmember, we leave open to the panel itself to identify, based on their experience, what they think are going to be the key issues for us to look at. What they have, Madam Councilmember, is they know what's on the landscape today. They know the topography. They know they'll have the written statement about where these problem areas are. And then they have a sea level rise projection, which has been formulated by the 4 counties in southeast Florida. And that goes out to 2100. So they'll have that baseline to think about key areas or facilities and give us their recommendations on the way they think we should think long-term about protecting them.
Thank you for coming to our city and our Arch Creek Basin. Thank you.
Well, thank you for, first of all, your staff's been great. And, we can't do this from the county. This is a partnership. There's no mandates. There's no orders, requirements coming out of this. We hope we will have a document that's persuasive on its own merits. And again, when the work of the ULI is done, we, the county, will be here to talk to you and find out if there's specific follow-up you'd like to engage us in.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Any other comment?
Oh, I'm sorry, sir.
Any questions from the public now?
No, it's a presentation. Well, thank you very much, Mr. Murley, and whatever greatness or astuteness you see from the staff, it's an overflow from the council. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
City events, Ms. Timothy.
Good evening, Mayor, Council, staff, and members of the public. Cassandra Timothy, Public Information Specialist, and I have the pleasure of sharing all of the exciting events coming up in the city of North Miami. Join visual professional artists every Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday during the month of April for Carnival Arts Workshop as they lead students in creating a life-size memory bow through painting and mixed art media. The workshop will take place at the North Miami Public Library from 4 to 5:30. The final art piece will be displayed at the Miami International Airport during the month of May to commemorate Haitian Heritage Month in Miami-Dade County. Go Green and Clean Up North Miami on Earth Day is a fun-filled day to enjoy kid activities while learning about nature. Volunteers are needed for the tidying and gardening throughout both the Enchanted Forest, Elaine Gordon Park, and the Joe Sellerson Center. On Saturday, April 16, all ages are welcome. However, school-aged children must be accompanied by an adult. Registration begins at 8:30, and the cleanup will take place from 9 a.m. to 11 a.m. Councilwoman Carol Keys will also be hosting a Green Awareness Fair following the cleanup event at Griffin Park, located on the corner of Northeast 123rd Street and West Dixie Highway, beginning at 11 a.m. Join the City of North Miami and local vendors as they provide services for electronic waste recycling, education on proper hazardous waste disposal, and sustainable conservation practices. Summer camp registration is now open. Programs are available at various locations throughout the city. For more information, contact the Parks and Recreation Department at 305-895-9840. Limited space available. For more information about all city events and programs, watch our free governmental channel, NOMI TV 77, available 24 hours a day through the city's website, www.northmiamifl.gov. Like the city on Facebook, follow @NOMI News on Twitter, and download the My NOMI mobile app. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Timothy. In our midst tonight, we have a group of journalism students from Florida International University, and they are accompanied by their professor of journalism, Mr. Neil Reisner. I want you to be recognized in our midst. As well as the students. Journalists cannot be shy. Thank you very much for coming. A consent agenda. Are we just gonna get the motion to approve? Or?
So moved.
Yeah.
With that, with C being pulled.
Yeah.
Second.
I have a motion made by Councilwoman Keys to approve the consent agenda without the tab C as it was pulled. That motion was seconded by Vice Mayor Desime. All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Consent agenda is approved with a 5-0 vote. Tab C. Tab C. Proposed resolution of the mayor and city council of the city of North Miami, Florida, authorizing the city manager to take all necessary preliminary action required to fund public infrastructure and public amenities by various means, including the issuance of general obligation bonds or revenue bonds, and further authorizing the city manager to engage the services of bond counsel, financial advisors, underwriters, credit rating firms, bond insurance firms, and related financial consultants as needed to issue municipal bonds in accordance with the Florida Constitution, Chapters 100 and 166, Florida Statutes 2015, the North Miami Charter, and Code of Ordinances, providing for an effective date and for all other purposes.
Now, thank you very much, Mr. Clerk. Now we're going to have a short presentation by staff, and I want the public to know that what you're seeing tonight is simply the resultant of something that has been worked on for quite some time now, and I'm very excited that it's probably going to be coming to fruition at this time. And you will have opportunity to ask questions and make comments after the presentation.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. As the mayor stated, the administration has started presenting to the council via 2 strategy sessions that we had. Our plans, if you will, and the concept of potentially issuing debt to focus on investment in infrastructure project, municipal facilities, parks, streets, sidewalks, as a financing mechanism that will help advance the city. The presentation here was one of the ones that we gave, so we want to walk through it and open ourselves for questions. So I'll let the deputy start the presentation as we presented last time.
Arthur Sorey, for the record, Arthur Sorey, Deputy City Manager, through the manager. As the manager stated, we've had 2 working sessions to go over or review the potential bond possibilities for the city. This 2-part presentation, I will go over some not direct projects, but possible projects. None of the projects are set in stone. These are possible projects that staff has identified, but you know, there'll be public meetings and the council will weigh in on the potential projects that we do move forward with once this is approved. So the overview. Proposed projects would include new public facilities, specifically community centers, new construction around town, parks and recreation, new parks and improvements, technology, infrastructure, and police department vehicles and technology upgrades. New public facilities, community centers. Most of the community centers throughout the cities were built back in the 50s. The newer ones are, you know, in the 70s, besides the Joe Celestine Community Center. So we are proposing or looking at the possibility of rebuilding some of those facilities. Sunkist Grove Community Center, Griffin Community Center, Guer Margolis Community Center, Keystone Community Center, and to do some improvements over at the Enchanted Forest Park, which has a community center many people don't know is there. New construction around town. Arts and science labs. The city has several parks, but currently there's nothing for the kids that aren't the athletics types to do. These arts and science labs would be also inclusive of music and studios where those kids of our community can go and learn these items. If something like this is approved, these would, and we could limit them to only city employees because they'll be paid for directly by city money. I mean, city residents, I'm sorry. The MOCA expansion is a possible project. There's been talks about expanding MOCA over the last several years. This will be a possible project that could be included in the bond. New public art pieces, and the possibility of a possible Griffin Amphitheater. Again, these projects are not set in stone projects, but some possible projects that we can have. Parks and recreation. Ben Franklin, the elementary school, is supposed to be rebuilt, so it'll be almost along the same lines as the one that was done over at Cagney Park, where the school will be built on our park facility. This time, you know, staff has identified that we can be in front of that if we do move forward with the bond and have the money and not experience the same downtime that we experienced with Cagney Park. Pepper Park, right behind the Joe Celestine Center. There's still a big open lot back there that we can develop. I know it's several different ideas, but this is something that could take care of. Also redoing the fields at Pepper Park, the building that's in the middle, the tennis courts. And the last project would be the North Miami Stadium upgrades. The stadium has begun aging. We're doing a lot of patchwork at the stadium. It could use a real good overhaul. Citywide technology upgrades. City servers and Wi-Fi's. Upgrades to public channel NOMI 77. Redesign and upgrades of city websites. Utility and general service payment kiosks throughout the city where residents don't have to necessarily come to City Hall to pay their water bill. They could pay it at our community centers. City Hall, security cameras at all of the facilities. ERP system, that's our financial software in the city. And fiber optics at all city facilities, which would also improve the technology at the facilities. Infrastructure. One possible plan could be administration building and a whole municipal complex. Again, this is not a set in stone project, but something that we can see as a possible reality, and we're moving forward with the bond. Not necessarily saying that the City Hall building, if approved, would look like this, but this is just a concept drawing. Chinatown, we've talked about moving forward with Chinatown. This also could be something that could be identified. Although we would make the major investment and we have CRA dollars also, this could help with some of the infrastructure that we do in the area. Keystone Point and Sans Souci guard gates. We always doing patchwork at the guard gates. This can be a project that would actually put, real guard gates there, fix those, get the cameras and everything, making sure they connect directly to the police department. And a tri-rail station. The gentleman just spoke about a possible tri-rail station. This would help us have the money in place when it's ready to go. Land acquisition. There's several lots around the city that staff has identified that we see that are vacant, are for sale. Some of these lots we can buy, do more park space, or look to do cultural arts centers, places we can have city plays, and New Way Theater is just one of the buildings that we do see that's out there. Sidewalk repair and creation. I know we speak all the time on possible repair and sidewalks, and this will be something we can put a whole lot of money into sidewalks and knock a big chunk out. North Miami Police, new vehicle replacement, technology upgrades, softwares that identify gunshots, license plate readers throughout our city. That way the police know when stolen cars are entering our city or when somebody who has potential problems with the law are entering our city. At this point, I'll turn it over to the manager to discuss the financing of such a bond project.
For the sake of the public, as you consider doing a capital finance transactions, there are several steps and activities that need to happen well in advance of actually issuing the debt and moving forward with it. And some of them start years in advance. First, obviously, we need to identify potential capital improvement projects. Not just the ones that we would want to specifically fund, but we need to take a larger strategic view at all of the capital projects and all of the needs of the entire city and develop an actual capital plan, a long-range capital plan, similar to how they do at the MPO with long-range capital financing. You want to prioritize those capital improvement projects that are identified, determine the amounts needed to fund the identified capital improvement projects and cost estimates. There's a lot of time that would be needed to fine-tune what these things are before you would ever even go to consider financing a project. We need to assess the affordability of the CIP program, identify all funding sources, and adjust the timing of the projects. You could use grants, we could use CRA, we could use actual pay-as-you-go capital, which is what we're doing and the city's been doing now for a number of years. You want to leverage off of state financing, federal projects that are already being done. So looking at all of these different means. And of course, incorporate the funding of the projects into your annual budget process and the development of a 5-year capital improvement plan. Advantages of issuing bonds. It allows you to finance projects over their useful life with a variety of repayment options. Not that I would recommend them, but you could do backloaded financing, front-loaded, interest only for a little while. Again, all the different leverages and stacking that I just referred to. Another advantage, it allows you to future beneficiaries to pay their fair share for services. Some of these things are facilities that will have a useful life of 20 or 30 years once we make the investment. So spreading that out over the life of those users. And the biggest advantage that municipalities have, low-cost financing due to the tax-exempt feature. We're able to issue debt on a tax-exempt basis, which saves the buyers of those debt instruments a lot of tax money, which means they're better investments, and it reduces our cost. The focus of the item that you're being asked to consider is really surrounded by developing the professional team that is needed by the city. One of those things, and the first one on the list, the financial advisor, the city already has some debt already issued. And under some of the new regulations, the city is required to be represented by a financial advisor when looking at and analyzing our debt issuances with the banks. So this position or this type of consultant or professional, I would be seeking to hire regardless of whether we were approving to do a debt issuance today or 5 years from now. It's something, a set of services that I would need to have as part of our ongoing services. Bond counsel and disclosure counsel are professionals that are needed and retained to provide legal opinions associated with any debt issuance that you would do. They help you prepare all the disclosure documents and a variety, all of the legal aspects of putting the transaction together. The underwriter is the investment bank that we actually issue or sell the instruments through. Currently, the city does business with Bank of America, but Bank of America has a investment bank, Bank of America Merrill Lynch. I have quite a bit of experience with them already issuing debt. I've actually issued somewhere in the area of $500 million over my municipal career. So dealt with actually all of the major banks and some of the smaller banks that are available to do these issuances. Revenue pledges. There are a variety, number of ways that you can pledge various revenues of the city and our instrumentalities in order to leverage for capital financing. One that is most used are general obligation. That is when we use our taxing, the city uses this taxing ability to issue debt. In that case, we would have a referendum and have the voters approve a millage cap that we could issue debt on. Non-ad valorem revenues, at any time the city can advance a revenue bond based on the existing non-ad valorem revenue sources that we have. CITT funds are a source where we could do streets and sidewalks because that's the purpose of those restricted funds. Enterprise fund revenues, again, that would be our water utility using the utility fees that we're charging and leveraging those revenues to issue debt. The city's actually already issued some debt around our utility. We obtained a state of Florida revolving fund loan for $25 million to do reinvestment in our water plant and some of our infrastructure. And then, of course, special revenue pledges. Those would be like the CRA, TIF revenues. The city's CRA is now up for extension, and we could issue bonds via that agency with, of course, approval from the council and the county to go forward. General obligations. I wanted to delve into this one because, again, it is probably one that is widely used. As I stated before, it requires a bond election for authorization. It must be issued for a public purpose. So, and it's, real property, personal property, I guess legal judgments against the city, but we don't have that issue. It is secured by the user's full faith credit and ad valorem taxing power. A general obligation bond tends to be the best rated debt that a municipality or a county can issue because you are assessing taxes in order to pay the debt. And of course, it attracts the lowest interest rate. I will tell you, based on my experience, the brand of Miami globally, so all the cities, the county proper, city of Miami, when that brand hits the market, it's something about the city or this region, and people are typically very excited to buy those bonds. You can see from this graphic, it's a comparison of bond issuances in the state of Florida, tax exempt, 2014 year to date compared to 2015, and you see the growth in the issuance of tax exempt bonds throughout the state. The biggest sector these last few years has been primary and secondary education. The school board, as you know, issued was like 1.2 billion or something in debt, or had approved. General government, cities and counties, utilities, transportation, healthcare. Jackson Health Systems just issued a debt. But as you can see, it is certainly a widely used means of financing. And in 2015, you're talking $14 billion of debt issued in the state of Florida alone on a tax-exempt basis. Sizing the issuance. When you look at the size of the issuance and how much money you need to look at a lot of things. Obviously, construction costs can inflate over time, and you do get some interest earnings over time when you're issuing debt. You can, another item that affects the size of the issuance or the notional amount is reimbursement for previously incurred costs. Once a debt has been approved, if it's a revenue bond by this council, or if we were to issue a debt GO and we went to the voters, the day that they approved the bond, we could start to develop costs that could be reimbursed through the bond issuance. The structure of the bond issuance also affects the size. So if you want a reserve fund for deposits or a surety bond, capitalized interest, when you're building a project, you typically do not make any payments on that debt until after the project is actually open and operating. So you would capitalize your issuance, the debt carry during that time frame. And of course, the cost of issuance. Cost of issuance typically will remain somewhere between a third or a half a basis point on the notional amount of the issuance. The biggest question, I'm sure, is how much do these things cost to our residents and our citizens? I don't have a direct calculation, but I'm using an example. City of Tallahassee recently issued, and they actually issued $100 million of bonds with a debt service that was projected over 40 years to be approximately $6.8 million per year. If we were to apply that to the city's tax base, that would translate to $3 per $1,000 of value, or for a house worth $100,000, it'd be $300. Of course, in a scenario for the city as I see it, we would not issue $100 million of debt in one time. There are a number of factors that come into play. The construction schedule, are we ready to actually advance the projects? The spend down requirements, because they're tax exempt bonds, you're required to use those proceeds typically within the first 24 to 36 months to prevent any negative tax implication to the city and to the bondholders. So in a transaction, I would suspect that we would see a debt service of about a third of that. And a point I wanted to make, obviously we want to be mindful, as we do this analysis and consider the impact to our taxpayers. And, the administration will be ready to look at a number of alternatives to make sure that, A, we're doing this the right way with the right feedback, but also that the cost that's being borne by our residents and our constituents are controlled, and over time and as we go forward. So with that, we have the item in front of you, but we're open to questions.
Okay, you ended by saying, where do we go from here? I guess before we speak, we have to hear from the public, from the residents, from the taxpayers. What do they think about this initiative, which is an initiative that, I can attest to the fact that when our former manager, Alim Ghani, I initiated the conversation with him over a year ago. And of course, as you know, under the Sunshine Law, mayor cannot talk to council members, and council members cannot talk between ourselves about possible, projects that they may have in mind. But some way, somehow, we come to a meeting of the minds, and we had our first retreat on this item. That's the only way that we could actually sit down and talk among ourselves through a publicized or advertised meeting where the public could have come. We had it at a FIU, North Campus, and that led to a second retreat because we had some questions and some issues that needed to be tweaked and so forth. We had our second retreat at the JCC, which is the Joe Sellison Center, and pursuant to that, we asked staff to prepare this presentation. We thought that we got to the point where we pretty much we pretty much mentioned all the facts, and we thought we're pretty much ready to present it to the public to opine on, and so we can move forward. But as far as where do we go from here, that's the question I was going to ask you. The stepwise approach, after tonight, when do we get to see these people, the financial advisors, the bond council people, and everybody else? But without being too, lengthy in my talk, at this time will open it to the public to come to the mic. If anyone, you want to say something first?
Sorry, through the mayor, one last thing. With regards to this item, the costs associated with FA, bond counsel, underwriters, there will be no costs until we actually move forward with an actual transaction for these professionals. Also, these professionals will have to go through a procurement process to engage them. So I'm asking for the direction tonight, but individual pieces would come back before the council for final approval. So I just want to put that on the record. There will be no cost right now associated with engaging these professionals.
And even if the process takes 3 months, 6 months, a year, 2 years, they don't get any fee payment until
an actual transaction.
Yes.
And I'll give you an example. We worked on, when I worked with the Overtown CRA, we worked for 2 years on a CRA bond to finance the city of Miami's obligation to the port tunnel. 2 years, no payment. Everybody got paid. They worked for the 2 years, but they didn't get any payment until the actual transaction was closed. And it's part of the cost, the issuance costs. So.
Okay. The floor is open to the public. I see no one coming, so public hearing is closed. Welcome to the dais. No comments.
Should I go first?
Go ahead.
Not that somebody. Okay, Mr. Mayor, the second meeting that we did have the retreat, I was unable to attend the retreat, but in my conversation with the city manager, I did express some reservation, and in doing so, I explained to the city manager I thought this item was a little bit too fast moving because we have folks out there who have not really, we talk about the residents, the homeowners, who haven't really heard about this except for tonight. I mean, this is the second time I've heard about it publicly. The first time you mentioned FIU, we were talking about it. The second time, and before I walked here, this is when I got this presentation. And that's why I had to disclose I wasn't at the first meeting. But regardless, what I do think that we need to be mindful, and we need to take this to the public. We are asking them to pay, regardless if it's $100 or $200 towards the taxes. We got to be mindful with that, and I don't feel comfortable supporting something that we already organizing, getting a committee together, getting ready to go in front of the voters. This is not the route that I would prefer, and I did express that to the city manager. We must put the residents first. I think, well, let me speak for myself. We are elected here, or I'm elected here to represent a group of folks, and I am elected to make decision on their behalf. But if I don't feel comfortable about a certain issue, and this is one, I just think that we are moving way too early on this item. I do understand bonds are where how community grows, and I'm fully in support of that. I was one of the first few who did talk to the deputy manager a couple months ago about possible of how we upgrade our parks and stuff like that. But looking at the presentation and where we are, I think we need to take a step back and kind of ask the community where we need to go. Thank you so much.
To answer to this, Mr. Vice Mayor, the presentation was just made, and I'm one of the, the most advocate of presenting issues to the voters before we take any major decision. We're talking about possibly anywhere from 60 to 100 million dollars of bond. I don't think any government would take such steps without getting the residents involved. That's why I mentioned about the stepwise approach. The stepwise approach does involve town hall meetings, and I'm sure that we're going to have many of them. And mind you, again, this is a referendum. This is an issue that's going to be sealed by a referendum by the people, where people are going to come out and vote. Our votes are not final in this issue. In this issue, it's the residents who are going to decide whether this goes forward or not. But as far as the process is concerned, as a city that is on the move, a city that where we want it to be, to compete at the same level of other cities, for the past 26 years, we've had zero new buildings in this city until recently that we have one that was just built almost next to us. So this is a city that's been dormant in terms of redevelopment. This is a city that is old. This is a city where we have no modern buildings. So, and I don't think we are moving too fast. I think we are doing the right thing the way we're supposed to do it, and in due time, many town hall meetings will be set in place where the residents, and this is just the beginning of it. We had to present it here first. We had to present it here before we actually engage in the town hall meetings. And as far as town hall meetings are concerned, we can schedule like 2-3 of them in the next 4 weeks. The residents are the boss here. You are on the front seat. Like I said, our votes are not final in this process. There will be a referendum after we approve it. So we need to move with this, and I don't think gridlocks and obstacles, are to be injected into this. Go ahead.
I'd like to say that we have discussed the bond. I know there are a lot of projects we would like to move the city forward with. I know we've identified certain generalities, and I want to pledge to everybody out there that everything about this bond, as far as I'm concerned, will be done with 100% transparency, and it will be done honestly. So everything about this bond, the residents are going to know. We will have town hall meetings so that people can put their input in what they would like to see in the city. We haven't picked individual projects, and when we finally do pick the projects, we'll see how much we can afford, and it will go to a vote of the residents. And it will be up to the residents to decide whether they want to move the city forward and pay taxes, which is what a bond means. Right now, we are not spending money. We have to start somewhere. Our manager is going to go forward. We're going to have to find bond counsel, find out, speak to lenders, see what our ratings are, see if the city can even borrow money, how much it's going to cost, and how much we can afford. So I don't have a problem this evening giving directions to let's move forward and explore what it is that we can do, but nothing has been decided. No projects have been decided upon, and the people will be kept informed the whole way. There will be nothing on the consent agenda. Everything will be discussed. You all have a say, because ultimately you're the ones who are going to be paying for this.
And Mr. Mayor, let me I want to let everybody know that as your council member, I did not pick the projects. And the plan is still at conception. That's mean when we are about to move forward, I think each of us gonna be sitting with our constituents to see exactly what we wanna accomplish in getting it borne out, because at the end of the day, you're gonna be voting on. And I thought before we move forward, we were gonna ask each council member if we can conduct some workshop with the constituents to make sure they're okay with the idea, because it's tax increase. And we gotta see how they feel about it. And secondly, what type of project and they would like to see in the district. And I'm not on board yet. I'm open to the idea of putting together a bond. Now it's up to the constituent, when I sit down with the constituents, identify the projects and give them an idea of how much increase they're gonna see in the property taxes. That's when we're gonna find out if we are okay on moving forward. But right now, it just, the project is still at conception. That's mean nothing will be finalized and no money will be spent on the idea. That's what I want to making sure we understand. And
That's where we are.
for my constituent not to say that I already identified project without let them know exactly what we are doing. That's been, I haven't identified anything yet. It's, those proposals come from staff.
I'm supportive of the idea. We have facilities that are way outdated. Other than the Celestin Center, nothing has opened new in my 50 years of lifetime. So it's time that we upgrade. And almost 50.
Almost 50.
But you get the idea. When we've got stuff that opened in the 1960s when John F. Kennedy was president of the United States, we're a little bit behind the times. So we've got to upgrade. This city hall is, way too small for the size of the staff that we have here now. We have to be very careful, as the councilwoman said, as Councilman Biename said, you have to be very forthright every step of the way, because any misstep will undercut the faith of the voters in the projects, and when that happens, you lose. It wasn't that we didn't all agree that MoCA should have been expanded 4 or 5 years ago, but the public didn't have faith in the politicians to give them that kind of money. And it failed by 75 votes in a citywide vote. So we have to make sure that we lockstep are communicating, talking about the money, and being forthright. Don't rush anything. Take a little bit of time. I'd rather take 3 months to get this right than rush it and try to get it done in a month, and then people feel like it was pushed down their throats. So please take your time, be diligent, communicate everything in real time, stick a new page on the website if necessary, have PIO throw things out all along, but get it out there, because it's needed, but the need can be undercut if the people don't have faith in what we're doing.